The neon lights of Neo Seoul flickered against the rain-soaked streets as Detective Kim Tae-ho pulled his coat tighter around his shoulders. Another 16-hour shift dealing with smugglers and black market dealers had left him exhausted. His cybernetic eye implant, a souvenir from his military days, automatically adjusted to the dim lighting as he navigated through the narrow alleyways toward his apartment. The hovercars above hummed their usual evening symphony, their anti-gravity engines creating a low vibration that seemed to pulse through the concrete beneath his feet. Tae-ho had grown used to the sound over the years, but tonight something felt different. The traffic patterns seemed more erratic, vehicles moving faster than usual through the designated air lanes. That's when he heard it. The sharp whine of overcharged engines, followed by the unmistakable screech of emergency brakes engaging too late. The crash echoed through the canyon of buildings like thunder, followed by the terrible silence that only comes after something has gone very wrong. Tae-ho's training kicked in immediately. His enhanced reflexes, another gift from his time as a space marine, carried him around the corner before his mind had fully processed what was happening. What he saw made his blood run cold. An elderly woman lay motionless in the street, her traditional hanbok torn and stained with blood. Debris from a shattered hovercar's undercarriage scattered around her like deadly confetti. Above, a sleek black vehicle disappeared into the night traffic, its damaged rear thruster sparking as it fled the scene. "Hey, can you hear me?" Tae-ho dropped to his knees beside the woman, his hands already moving to check her pulse. Park Soon-ja, according to the identification chip his scanner picked up, was in her 70s, but had the kind of weathered face that spoke of a life well lived. Her breathing was shallow, and he could see the telltale signs of internal bleeding. His military medical training took over. Tae-ho activated the emergency beacon in his wrist communicator while simultaneously assessing her injuries. 3 broken ribs, possible concussion, and definitely some internal trauma. But she was alive, and that was what mattered. "The medical team is coming," he whispered, gently cradling her head to keep her neck stable. "You're going to be okay. I'm Detective Kim Tae-ho, and I'm not going anywhere." Soon-ja's eyes fluttered open, revealing an unusual amber color that seemed to catch the streetlight in an almost otherworldly way. For a moment, Tae-ho thought he saw something strange in those eyes, a depth that didn't quite match her apparent age. But pain and shock could do strange things to people's expressions. "My cat," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the sound of approaching sirens. "Nabi is alone, Building 47, Apartment 3B, please." "I'll make sure your cat is safe," Tae-ho promised, squeezing her hand gently. "But right now, let's focus on getting you patched up." The medical hover ambulance arrived with its characteristic blue glow and the soft hum of advanced life support systems. The paramedics worked with practiced efficiency, their scanner arrays immediately diagnosing Soon-ja's condition, while nanomedical bots began emergency repairs at the cellular level. "She's lucky you were here," the lead paramedic, a young woman named Choi Min-ji, told Tae-ho as they prepared to transport Soon-ja. "Your first aid probably saved her life. These hit-and-run cases in the hover lanes are getting worse every month." As they loaded Soon-ja into the ambulance, she managed to grab Tae-ho's wrist with surprising strength. Her amber eyes locked onto his, and for a moment he could have sworn he saw something almost desperate in her gaze. "Building 47, she repeated, pressing something small and metallic into his palm. "3rd floor. Nabi gets scared when I'm not home. The key is unusual. You'll understand when you see the door." The object in his hand felt warm, almost alive, with surfaces that seemed to shift and change when he wasn't looking directly at it. Definitely not a standard apartment key, but then again, nothing about this night was turning out to be standard. As the ambulance lifted off into the night sky, its emergency lights painting the wet streets in shades of blue and white, Tae-ho stood alone in the alley. The strange key pulsed gently in his palm, and he couldn't shake the feeling that Park Soon-ja was much more than just an elderly woman who'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time. The hovercar that had hit her hadn't been some drunk driver or reckless teenager. The way it had disappeared into the traffic patterns, the precise timing of the attack, and now this mysterious key all pointed to something much larger than a simple accident. Tae-ho pocketed the key and headed toward Building 47, unaware that his simple act of kindness had just set in motion events that would change not only his life, but the fate of two entire species. Taeho's alarm buzzed at exactly 6 in the morning, but he was already awake. The strange key from the night before sat on his nightstand, its surface shifting between metallic silver and deep blue in the early morning light. He'd barely slept, his mind replaying the accident and Sunja's mysterious final words. After a quick shower and his usual breakfast of instant noodles, Taeho grabbed his jacket and headed downstairs to check on the elderly woman's cat before his shift started. The morning air still carried the scent of last night's rain, and the hover traffic above was lighter than usual for a Tuesday. That's when he saw him. A tall man in a perfectly tailored black suit stood beside the entrance to Taeho's apartment complex, looking completely out of place among the working-class residents hurrying off to their jobs. The stranger was pale, almost unnaturally so, with sharp features and dark hair slicked back in a style that belonged more in a corporate boardroom than on the streets of this neighborhood. "Detective Kim Tae-ho?" The man's voice carried a slight accent that Tae-ho couldn't quite place. It sounded Korean, but there was something underneath it, like someone who had learned the language perfectly, but had never actually lived it. "That's me. Who's asking?" Taeho's hand instinctively moved toward his service weapon. 20 years. As a cop had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now they were screaming that something wasn't right about this guy. The stranger smiled, revealing teeth that were just a little too white and a little too straight. "My name is Lee Junho. I represent the family of Park Sunja, the woman you helped last night. We wanted to express our gratitude for your heroic actions." Junho reached into his jacket, and Taeho tensed. But instead of a weapon, the man pulled out a thick envelope made of expensive paper that seemed to shimmer slightly in the morning light. "This is a token of our appreciation," Junho said, holding out the envelope. 50,000 credits, a small price for saving a beloved family member's life. Taeho took the envelope, feeling its unexpected weight. Through the translucent material, he could see the distinctive glow of high-denomination credit chips. This wasn't pocket change. This was more money than he made in 6 months. "That's very generous, but I was just doing my job," Taeho said, studying the man's face. There was something about Junho's eyes that bothered him. They were too steady, too focused, like someone concentrating very hard on appearing normal. "Nonsense. What you did went far beyond duty." Junho's pronunciation was perfect, but his word choices were oddly formal, like someone reading from a script. In many cultures, such selfless behavior toward strangers is considered unusual. The way he said unusual made Taeho's skin crawl. Most people would have done the same thing, would they? Junho tilted his head at an angle that seemed just slightly wrong, as if he wasn't quite sure how human necks were supposed to work. "Fascinating. We would very much like to discuss this further. Perhaps you could meet me this evening." "Where did you have in mind?" "Sunja's apartment. She specifically requested that any meeting take place there. Building 47, apartment 3B. You know the address, I believe." Junho's smile widened, and for just a moment Taeho could have sworn the man's teeth looked sharper than they had a second ago. The strange key in Taeho's pocket seemed to pulse with warmth at the mention of the apartment. "Yeah, I was planning to check on her cat anyway. How is she doing, by the way? The doctors wouldn't tell me much. She is recovering. The medical technology available to our family is quite advanced. She should be back home within a few days." Junho checked his watch, an expensive piece that displayed not just the time but orbital positions and what looked like star charts. "Shall we say 8 o'clock this evening?" "Fine by me. But I have to ask, how did you know where to find me?" "I didn't give my address to anyone at the hospital." For the first time, Junho's perfect composure seemed to slip slightly. His left eye twitched, and he was quiet for just a moment too long. "Sunja is very resourceful. She has connections throughout the city." "Right." Taeho pocketed the envelope, his suspicions growing stronger by the minute. "I'll see you tonight, then." "Excellent. And detective?" Junho's voice carried a strange harmonic undertone that seemed to resonate in Taeho's bones. "I would appreciate it if you kept our meeting confidential. Soonja's family values their privacy very highly. As Junho walked away, Taeho noticed that the man's gait was too smooth, too controlled. He moved like someone who had to think about each step, rather than walking naturally. And when a hovercar backfired nearby, Junho's head snapped toward E, the sound with predatory speed that no human neck should have been able to achieve. Taeho watched until the strange man disappeared around the corner, then pulled out his phone to run a quick background check. Lee Junho didn't exist in any database. No birth records, no employment history, no digital footprint at all. In an age where everyone left electronic traces everywhere they went, that was impossible. Unless, of course, Lee Junho wasn't from around here. Building 47 looked ordinary enough from the outside, but as Taeho approached apartment 3B that evening, the strange key in his pocket grew noticeably warmer. The hallway lights flickered as he walked past, and he could swear he heard a low humming sound coming from behind Soonja's door. When he pressed the key against the lock, the door didn't just open, it dissolved. The solid metal simply melted, away like water, revealing an interior that made Taeho's jaw drop. The apartment was at least 3 times larger inside than it should have been based on the building's dimensions. Holographic displays floated in midair, showing star charts and what looked like surveillance footage from all over Seoul. Advanced technology lined the walls, sleek and organic-looking devices that pulsed with soft blue light. Impressive, isn't it? Junho's voice came from behind him. Taeho spun around to find the pale man standing in what had been empty space just moments before. Human architecture is so limiting. Before Taeho could respond, Junho's appearance began to shift. His skin took on a silvery sheen, his eyes expanded and turned completely black, and his limbs elongated in ways that made Taeho's stomach turn. Within seconds, the man he'd met that morning had become something decidedly not human. "My true name is Veltar," the creature said, its voice now carrying multiple harmonics that seemed to come from several directions at once. "I am a reconnaissance operative of the Centauri Collective, and I have been stationed on your world for the past 47 Earth years." Taeho's hand moved to his weapon, but Veltar raised one elongated finger. "Please, Detective. If I wished you harm, you would not have survived our encounter this morning. I brought you here because I need your help." "Where's Soonja?" Taeho demanded, trying to process what he was seeing. The apartment around them hummed with alien technology, and through one of the windows he could see what looked suspiciously like a small spacecraft hidden on the building's roof. "She is here." Veltar gestured to an alcove where a medical pod was suspended from the ceiling. Inside, Soonja lay unconscious, surrounded by healing rays that slowly repaired her injuries. But as Taeho watched, her appearance began to change too. Her aged features smoothed out, revealing someone much younger, and her skin developed the same silvery quality as Veltar's. "Soonja is my partner," Veltar explained. "Her real name is Kethara. We have been conducting a long-term observation, study of human society, living among you to understand your species better." "Spying on us, you mean?" Taeho's grip tightened on his weapon. "Initially, yes, but our mission has evolved far beyond simple intelligence gathering." Veltar moved to a control panel that materialized from the wall at his touch. "What happened?" "Last night was not an accident. We were attacked by agents of the Draconian Empire, a rival faction that sees our work here as a threat to their expansion plans." The holographic displays around the room suddenly came alive with images of space battles. Massive warships engaged in combat among the stars, energy weapons lighting up the void between planets. Taeho saw creatures that looked like armored reptiles directing the battle from command bridges filled with technology that made even this apartment look primitive. The Draconians believe that any species showing compassion toward strangers should be eliminated before they can spread their influence, Veltar continued. They have built their empire on the principle that only the strong survive, and they view human empathy as a dangerous virus that could undermine their power. "But why does that matter to you?" Taeho asked, still trying to wrap his mind around the situation. Veltar was quiet for a moment, his large black eyes reflecting the light from the displays. "Because after decades of living among humans, we have come to realize that the Draconians are wrong. Your compassion is not a weakness, it is your greatest strength." The alien activated another display, showing surveillance footage from across the city. Taeho watched scenes of humans helping each other, a construction worker sharing his lunch with a homeless man, teenagers helping an elderly woman cross the street, a doctor working overtime to save a patient she'd never met before. In the 43 known spacefaring civilizations, only humans consistently show kindness to complete strangers, Veltar said. Every other species we have encountered operates on systems of tribal loyalty, mutual benefit, or simple dominance. But humans will risk their lives for people they have never seen before, expecting nothing in return. So what changed? Taeho lowered his weapon slightly. Why are you telling me this now? Because the Draconians have decided that humanity poses too great a threat to their empire. They are planning a full-scale invasion, and they tried to eliminate our observation post to prevent us from warning Earth's governments. Veltar's form shimmered with what might have been emotion, but there is something they do not know, something that could change everything. The medical pod opened with a soft hiss, and Kithara sat up slowly. Her silver skin caught the light as she looked directly at Taeho. The Collective's council has been studying our reports for years, she said, her voice carrying the same harmonic quality as Veltar's. They have come to a remarkable conclusion. Humanity's compassion is not just unique, it is contagious. Taeho stared at them both, beginning to understand the implications. You mean? Yes, Veltar nodded. After 4 decades of living among humans, we have begun to care about your species in ways that go against everything we were taught. We have, as you might say, gone native, and we are not the only ones. The holographic displays around the apartment shifted to show new images, communication logs, star charts, and what looked like military deployment plans. Veltar's elongated fingers danced across the floating controls as he pulled up file after file of data. When the Collective first sent us to Earth, Veltar began, his voice heavy with something that sounded like regret. Our orders were simple. Infiltrate human society, study your behavioral patterns, and identify the weaknesses that would make conquest most efficient. Taeho felt his blood run cold. Conquest? Standard procedure for the Collective, Kithara said from her medical pod, sitting up slowly as the healing rays continued their work. We have absorbed 47 civilizations using this method. Send in long-term observers, map out social structures, identify pressure points, then move in with minimal resistance. The displays showed footage of other worlds, cities burning, populations fleeing, and massive alien vessels hovering over conquered planets like metallic vultures. Taeho recognized the same sleek technology that filled this apartment, but deployed for war instead of observation. But something went wrong. With our mission, Veltar continued, pulling up surveillance footage from their decades on Earth. We were supposed to remain detached, clinical, observer-only, never participants. The screens showed Sunja, or Kithara in her human disguise, living her cover life. But as the years progressed, Taeho could see the changes. She wasn't just pretending to be human anymore. She was helping her neighbors, volunteering at local shelters, even adopting stray cats. The clinical alien observer had become genuinely caring. I watched her change, Veltar said, his large black eyes reflecting the images. At first I thought it was just better method acting, but then I started changing too. More footage appeared, showing Veltar in various human disguises over the years. He'd been a teacher, a paramedic, even a social worker. In each role, Taeho could see the same transformation, the alien learning not just to mimic human compassion, but to feel it. The turning point came 15 years ago, Kithara said, standing up from the pod. Her silver skin was already shifting back to human appearance. There was a building collapse in Gangnam. Veltar was working as a paramedic then. He pulled 6 people from the rubble, including a little girl who reminded him of the daughter he'd lost on our homeworld centuries ago. You have children? Taeho asked, surprised. Had, Veltar replied quietly. The Collective doesn't tolerate emotional attachments. I was sterilized. After my first mission showed signs of what they called inappropriate empathy, but humans made me remember what it felt like to care about someone other than myself. The apartment's communication system suddenly came alive with urgent warnings in an alien language. Veltar's form tensed as he read the incoming messages. "They know," he said, his voice filled with fear. "The collective has discovered our change in loyalty. They're sending a termination squad." "And the Draconians?" Tae-ho asked. "Still hunting us for our intelligence data. They want to know everything we've learned about human military capabilities and social structures." Kethara was now fully human in appearance again, but Tae-ho could see the worry in her amber eyes. "Both sides want us dead, Detective. The only difference is their reasons." Through the apartment's enhanced windows, Tae-ho could see movement in the night sky. What he'd initially mistaken for aircraft were actually small spacecraft moving in search patterns above the city. Their weapons were visible even from a distance, energy cannons that could level city blocks. "We need to disappear," Veltar said, turning to face Tae-ho directly. "Tonight. But we cannot do it without help from someone the authorities trust." The alien moved to a wall panel that opened to reveal a storage compartment filled with advanced technology. Weapons that hummed, with contained energy, medical devices that could heal any injury, and communication equipment that could reach across the galaxy. "We can offer you wealth beyond imagination," Veltar said, pulling out a device that projected holographic credits. Technology that would advance human civilization by centuries. Medical knowledge that could eliminate disease and extend human life indefinitely. "All we ask in return," Kethara added, "is that you help us fake our deaths and disappear into human society permanently. We have new identities prepared, new covers that will let us live out our lives peacefully on Earth." Tae-ho stared at the offered technology, knowing it represented power and knowledge that could transform not just his life, but all of humanity's future. The medical scanner alone could save thousands of lives. The energy weapons could protect Earth from any future alien invasion. "But if you refuse," Veltar continued, his voice growing darker, "you become a liability. The collective will assume you know too much. The Draconians will think you're working with us. Either way, your life expectancy becomes very short." Outside, the searchcraft were getting closer. Their energy signatures were making the apartment's systems flicker and spark. Tae-ho could see armed figures moving through the building's lower floors, working their way up systematically. "Choose quickly, Detective," Kethara urged. "In 5 minutes, this building will be swarming with beings who consider human life completely expendable." Tae-ho looked at the advanced technology, then at the two aliens who had spent decades learning to care about humanity. His decision would not only determine their fate, but potentially the future of human-alien relations for generations to come. 30. Sound of footsteps in the hallway was getting closer. The footsteps in the hallway were getting louder, and Tae-ho could hear the distinctive whine of energy weapons charging up. But instead of panic, a strange calm settled over him. 20 years as a detective had taught him that running from problems usually made them worse. "No," he said firmly, pushing away the offered technology. "We're not running and we're not hiding." Veltar's large black eyes widened in what might have been surprise. "Detective, you do not understand the danger." "I understand perfectly." Tae-ho pulled out his phone and started making calls. "You said human compassion changed you, right? That it made you care about us. Well, it works both ways. I care about what happens to you two, and I'm not going to let either side turn you into casualties." His first call was to Captain Park Dong-min, his superior at the police department. "Captain, I need you to mobilize every unit in the city and converge on Building 47. Yes, sir, I know how that sounds, but I need you to trust me. And contact the Ministry of Defense. Tell them we have genuine first contact situation." Kethara grabbed his arm. "You cannot expose us. The collective will have to deal with the entire human race," Tae-ho interrupted. "And from what you've told me, that might not be such a bad thing." Outside, the alien searchcraft were descending rapidly. Through the apartment's enhanced windows, Tae-ho could see Draconian soldiers rappelling down from their ships, their reptilian forms covered in advanced combat armor. Their weapons glowed with deadly energy as they prepared to storm the building. "Veltar, can your communication equipment reach the collective directly?" Tae-ho asked. "Yes, but do it. Open a channel." And Kethara, I need you to start recording everything. Your decades of observations, your transformation, all of it. We're going to show the galaxy what really happened here. The apartment's systems came alive as Veltar reluctantly activated the long-range communication array. The walls themselves became giant screens, displaying star charts and connection protocols as the signal reached out across space. Meanwhile, Cathara's fingers flew across holographic interfaces, compiling decades of surveillance footage and personal logs. "This is madness," Veltar muttered, but Teho could see something else in the alien's expression: hope. The building shook as draconian forces breached the lower floors. Teho could hear the distinctive sound of energy weapons discharging, and the screams of residents fleeing the building. But he also heard something else: the roar of human military aircraft approaching fast. "Seoul Police Department, this is Detective Kim Tae-ho," he spoke into his communicator. "I am in apartment 3B with 2 alien refugees who have been living peacefully among us for 40 years. They are under attack by hostile forces, and I am declaring this a sanctuary zone under international law." Captain Park's voice crackled back. "Tae-ho, what the hell are you talking about? Aliens?" "You'll see in about 30 seconds, sir. Just trust me and keep those draconian soldiers away from this apartment." The communication link to the collective suddenly activated, filling the room with harmonic tones that made Tae-ho's bones vibrate. A massive alien face appeared on the main screen, clearly a high-ranking official with metallic skin and eyes like burning stars. "Operative Veltar," the being spoke in perfect Korean, though its voice carried undertones that suggested vast intelligence and cold calculation. "You have violated your mission parameters. Explain yourself." "Honored Counselor," Veltar replied, his form straightening with military precision. "I submit the following evidence for your consideration." The room filled with holographic displays, showing the footage Cathara had compiled. Decades of human kindness played out in fast-forward, people helping strangers, sacrificing for others, showing compassion even to their enemies. But more importantly, it showed the gradual transformation of the 2 alien observers, from clinical scientists into genuine protectors of humanity. "We came here to catalogue weaknesses," Veltar continued, "but we discovered something the collective has never encountered before, a species whose primary strength comes from caring about others, including those they have never met. This compassion is not weakness. It is a force that can change the nature of consciousness itself." The draconian forces had reached the 3rd floor, and energy blasts were shaking the walls. But human military units were engaging them in the hallways, buying precious time for Tae-ho's desperate gambit. "Furthermore," Cathara added, stepping forward to address the collective directly, "we have documented evidence that this human trait is contagious. After 40 years of exposure, we have developed emotional attachments not just to individual humans, but to the concept of protecting the innocent. We believe this represents an evolutionary leap that could transform galactic civilization." The Counselor's expression was unreadable, but Tae-ho could see other faces appearing on subsidiary screens. The entire collective council was watching this unprecedented moment. "You claim that human compassion can transform alien psychology?" the Counselor asked. "We are living proof," Veltar replied, "and we are not alone. Our reports indicate that similar transformations have occurred among observers from 7 different species currently stationed on Earth." The building shook violently as a draconian energy cannon opened fire from outside. But the human military response was immediate and overwhelming. Fighter jets screamed past the windows, engaging the alien craft with weapons that, while primitive by galactic standards, were wielded with determination that clearly surprised the draconian forces. "Look at them," Tae-ho said, addressing the council directly. "They don't even know who you are, but they're risking their lives to protect 2 aliens they've never met, just because I asked them to. That's not weakness. That's the kind of strength that built human civilization." The counselor was quiet for a long moment, studying the battle raging outside and the footage still playing on the screens. When it finally spoke, its voice carried a tone Tae-ho had never heard before: wonder. "The Collective Council hereby declares an immediate cessation of all conquest protocols regarding Earth," it announced. "We are establishing formal diplomatic relations with the human species, and we are recalling all draconian forces from this system. The change was immediate. The draconian ships outside suddenly powered down their weapons and began retreating to orbit. The attack on the building stopped, leaving an eerie silence broken only by the sound of human emergency vehicles arriving to help the evacuated residents. We are designating the human approach to compassion as the kindness protocol, the counselor continued. It will be studied and, if possible, integrated into collective society. Earth is hereby declared a protected world, and humans are invited to join the galactic community as equals. Tae-ho sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. Through the windows, he could see news helicopters arriving, along with government officials, and what looked like the entire Seoul police force. The secret was out, and humanity's relationship with the galaxy would never be the same. Kethara walked over and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Thank you," she said simply, "for showing us that running away is not always the answer." "Thank you," Veltar added, "for proving that human compassion is indeed contagious. Even hardened detectives, it seems, are not immune." Outside, the first tentative communications were beginning between human officials and collective representatives. It would be a long process, full of challenges and misunderstandings, but for the first time in galactic history, a species had been invited to join the community not because of their strength or their technology, but because of their capacity to care. The kindness protocol had begun. The end.